Hi, everyone. Welcome to another live look at the astrology. This is June 15th through 21st, 2020. Yes, it's really strange that it is almost the solstice, which means it's almost the summer solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere, here in New York City. 2020, kind of a crazy year, but I do hope you all are well. If you are listening live, do put a comment in, tell me how you're doing, how you're sort of navigating these times. As I've been saying in previous live looks, or if you're watching the replay on YouTube or on IGTV or even Spotify, I've been talking about how we are in eclipse season. So eclipse season, it began in May. You could argue that it began with the Gemini new moon on May 22nd, but it really took us into last week's full moon lunar eclipse in Sagittarius on June 5th. So what's eclipse season? And maybe I'm repeating myself a little bit, but it's a time when life is at a crossroads. The analogy that I make over and over again, that it's as if you are watching a theatrical performance, except that theatrical performance is your life, and the curtain is coming down on one act and it's coming up on another. And it may be a very different act than what it was. So there's going to be something about June and July that's going to feel very liminal. It's going to feel very much like you are starting something new, but at the same time wrapping something up. For those who are new to my work, speaking of repeating myself, I'm here in Brooklyn, New York. I'm a holistic astrologer and a psychic medium, and I've been doing astrology, or rather, I've been doing empowering astrology for 10 years and working with clients for almost as long as that. And, this is a good time to reintroduce myself, because I think that when I call myself a holistic astrologer, I think it's a word that maybe people can start to understand, because I was reminded of this today in a client session. There's our astrology, it's over here, and then there's us. And we inhabit our astrology, and you inhabit your astrology, and you're inhabiting the astrology right now. So how you show up, how you are in yourself, and your awareness of yourself, and how you work on yourself directly impacts how you inhabit and interface and intersect with the astrology. So eclipses, they talk about how things are going to change, but we can't forget the us part of it. I was thinking about this last week, because I'm Sag rising. I don't know if that means anything to you. I have 3 planets in Sagittarius, and I knew the eclipse was coming. I'm an astrologer, is my job. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, how is this going to manifest? You sort of have a palette of potential energies. We know that Sagittarius is about faith and truth and wisdom, and trying to make sense about life, and trying to have a sense of morality and conviction and right and wrong. And it's a time when we also have to share our wisdom. We have to sort of stand up for what we believe in, but we might at the same time be examining where we are wrong. So, I could see how this eclipse was really talking about, like, being in my own wisdom, which is maybe something that's historically a little bit hard for me to do. But then to see these Sagittarian themes unfold, it's kind of crazy. This is where astrology is amazing, because you can see sort of the archetype start to weave its way through your experiences and your thoughts, and how we're all sort of contemplating what's the meaning of life right now. What is the meaning of life in 2020? I can tell you all that, and I said this before, a lot of things have to change, and a lot of things have to change inside of us. And had a couple of people reach out after last week's broadcast. I'm like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, I'm okay. I'm really blessed, although that word seems a little bit trite at the moment, and humbled to be able to get to do what I love and to connect with you all. And yeah, I had to sort of talk some real talk last week and talk about these cycles and why now and what's going on and what are we all doing. So, anyway, so let's talk about the astrology this week. As we go into this week, we're coming up to the next eclipse. So we have a solar eclipse on June 21st. So that's Sunday. But before we get there, we're going to start to a couple of things. One, this week we're coming up to the end of eclipse season. Sorry, end of Gemini season. Kind of getting ahead of myself. This week we're in the home stretch of Gemini. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. But what does this mean? So when we get to the end of a sign is just an archetype. A sign is just a sort of an expression of certain things that we all experience in life. And Gemini teaches us about communication, learning, information, travel, curiosity, but it also teaches us about choice. So this is a season where we've had to really weigh our options and think about our choices and think about our next direction and think about how we communicate and how we listen and how we learn. This season sort of came with some strong Mars energy, which is why maybe our communication has been a little bit pointed or we've had something to say. There's been a lot of, it's been vocal during this time, but we sort of were winding our way through the archetype this week. And maybe there's a sense when we get towards the end later, about Thursday, Friday, what have we learned? What have we learned over the last 4 weeks? What have we learned since the Gemini moon on May 22nd? What have we learned about our choices and the information that we consume and the things that we share? Gemini is a sign of duality, and everything in creation is duality. So we're also coming up to the end of the lunar month this week, and just typically when we get to that last stretch of the lunar month, this would be, it was called the balsamic moon. It's a time when we have to pull inward, we have to reflect. It's not about taking action. In fact, if you are looking to make some big moves this week, it's best to, when you're trying to make plans, by the way, especially if you're trying to start something new, it's conventional astrological wisdom to wait for after the new moon. When you do something at the end of the moon, I mean, it depends if it's appropriate or not. It's more about things are ending, things are culminating. Those last few days of the new moon, they always feel very witchy to me. There's a sense of, the sort of the veil between this world and the next world a little bit thinner. As you think about it, the moon is coming to a sliver of light, and it's about to become new, and we start the whole cycle over again. And here's the other thing about maybe, the small print after that, the little caveat after that. That said, we are having Mercury retrograde this week. So Mercury turns retrograde on June 18th. It turns retrograde at 14 degrees of Cancer. Now, if you know me, or maybe you don't, I'm not historically somebody that freaks out about Mercury retrograde because it happens 3 times a year. And if I spent my time as an astrologer 3 weeks out of the year, 3 weeks times 3, sometimes times 4, we would be talking about the same thing over and over again. Retrogrades are common. It is as if the planet starts to turn backwards in the sky. But you and I both know, hopefully you know this, that the planets don't actually turn backwards. It's a trick, it's an optical illusion. But in astrology, it's symbolic. A planet is no longer moving forward. It's moving backwards. It means that, in a way, we are not moving forward. We are moving backwards. At any given time, there is some planet retrograde. So It's not something to lose a lot of sleep over. Right now, Saturn's retrograde, Pluto is retrograde, I think. Jupiter is retrograde. For instance, the outer planets, the ones that are later in the solar system, they spend 5 months out of the year retrograde. Jupiter is 4 months out of the year retrograde. Mercury is the planet of communication and choices and ideas and movement. So maybe this one we know that we can kind of pick up on it a little bit more than, say, Saturn. Saturn's structure, the things that we're building, karma, lessons, growing up, growing older. So Saturn retrograde, we don't maybe pick up on it as readily, but Mercury, communication, I was trying to use my phone earlier and it just like wasn't working, or I had to like restart it, and I was like, well, it's gonna be Mercury retrograde in a few days. I think even Facebook Messenger wasn't working. I had to check again. But here's here's the drill, the standard Mercury retrograde drill. It is conventional wisdom to not make any big decisions during Mercury retrograde. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we have to make decisions. Sometimes we get married during retrograde. Sometimes we make a move during Mercury retrograde. Does that mean that when Mercury turns direct, it stops? You're not married anymore, or you decide to change to move? Of course not. Like you have to sort of take the bigger picture into account, but you just want to do your due diligence right now. If you are looking to make a big change or move, just take a second, reflect, ask yourself if this is a good time. Maybe it is. Great, fantastic. Double check everything, cross the T's, dot the I's, make sure you have a plan B, and then you're good to go. Although last Mercury retrograde, it was just like a comedy of errors. Things weren't working, reservations got lost, things got broken, and I was just like, all right, this is, Mercury retrograde 5, Katie 0. So I just had to sort of go with it. But I don't know, I generally sort of, I guess, a little cavalier when it comes to Mercury retrograde. That said, I would like to get a new phone. I'm not going to buy one during Mercury retrograde. I think my mom once got a car during Mercury retrograde. I think it's okay, but I was just like, oh, Mom, don't buy a car during Mercury retrograde, because Mercury is about travel and transportation. It's just one of those things you don't want to go screwy. When I was commuting more into Manhattan, because I live in Brooklyn, and I was on the subway more often, it just seemed like when Mercury went retrograde, and I would love to see if this sort of lines up and you can plot it. It just seemed like the trains were always sort of crazy. So that's happening this week, and Mercury will go backwards, and it will go backwards all the way to 5 degrees of Cancer. Mercury will be sort of, I'm trying to think if it's going to hit anything. It's kind of doing the thing around Chiron. So Chiron being this point in the sky right now where we need to deal with maybe older issues around and pain and suffering around how we communicate, maybe any issues around not feeling like we are able to communicate. Mercury is doing this in Cancer. Cancer is about the past. It's about family. It's about archetypical mom. Sometimes it's about literal mom. And so maybe we all have to take a second look at how we communicate based on patterns that we received in childhood, and if those patterns still serve us. Because if we are communicating in a way that is unhelpful, especially in times of stress, especially in a partnership or amongst our family, then Mercury retrograde gives us an opportunity to get a different perspective and maybe take awareness that it's time to communicate differently or think differently. We'll see. It's going to be different for everybody. That said, we are going to have a new moon on the 21st of June. We're having a new moon on the solstice. So this is a potent new moon. The solstice happens twice a year. We have the solstice around June 21st. It's summer here in the Northern Hemisphere. It's the start of winter in the southern hemisphere for our friends in Australia, New Zealand. And then we have the solstice in December, the start of winter here in the northern hemisphere, and summer in the southern. So having an eclipse on a solstice, there's something about it that feels extra charged, extra important. And it could mean that we are sort of coming into a time that sort of concerns everybody. The solstice sort of lines up with the four directions. It's what's called a cardinal point. So it's possible that this summer there's a lot of big things going on. We will see. I don't, I don't do what's called mundane astrology. It's like where it's more you kind of predict things more about on a world level. But this eclipse, I've got my eye on. I'll go around the zodiac so you know what this eclipse is approximately activating for you. So if you are an Aries, this eclipse is activating your career sign. And just side note for everybody, this Cancer solar eclipse is sort of the coda to an eclipse that was on July 12th, 2018. That was the first in a series of eclipses that was in Cancer and also Capricorn, its opposing sign. So this eclipse is sort of the new beginning / ending to something, maybe. Maybe this is quite obvious to somebody listening right now or not so much, but it's the end to something that began back in July of 2018. So that said, Aries and every sign after Aries, think about, okay, if this is Aries, career, what was going on in my professional life in July 2018? Okay, what's going on now? How do you see the connection? Because we were having eclipses in July of 2018, January 2019, July of 2019. And then at the beginning of this year, we had a lunar eclipse in Cancer on January 12th. So here we are. We're at the end. Anyway, that's some background information. So Aries, this is the part of your chart that has to do with career. It also has to do with the direction you send your life in. Your ambitions, your drive, what sort of role do you want to play in the world? And this eclipse is sort of like this punctuation point. Again, it's happening on the solstice of something that maybe has been going on the last 18 months or the last 2 years at this point. So when there's an eclipse in this part of the chart, it's not uncommon for there to be a career change, a change in jobs, a change around your work situation, but also maybe even a change in your direction. This is for Aries, this is the most visible part of your chart. It's the top of the chart, the top of the sky. Moving on to Taurus, this is the part of your chart that, wow, I just like totally blinked on like moving. Wait, we're doing Aries, Cancer. Oops, I flipped the chart. Sorry, guys. I was like, wait a second. That doesn't, everything I said makes sense, or everything I said still applies, but Aries, it is not your career. It is your home and family. I sort of had a dyslexic moment. Sorry. So scratch that. Aries. So this eclipse is happening in the part of your chart that talks about home and family. So it's the bottom of your chart. It is the part of the chart that talks about your roots, your foundation. So just to sort of like recap that part of your life, you maybe have seen some changes in your living situation since July of 2018. So this, and if you're like Aries, wait, that kind of still sounded like it fit when you were talking about career. That's because on July 5th you're going to have an eclipse in your career sign, but we'll save that for another broadcast. So moving back to Cancer for Aries, so that part, it is not uncommon for this time, Aries, for you to be thinking about making a move or making a change in your living situation. This can include staying in your living situation, but making some change in your home. This also includes people coming into your home to live and also leaving the home. This also might include a baby. That includes a new child coming into your home. But obviously that's not going to be relevant for everybody, but it's a powerful new beginning. And I think that over the last 18 months, this has been a time where you've had to really maybe figure out where home is. Moving on to Taurus. Now this all makes sense. Moving on to Taurus. This is the part of your chart that talks about communication, voice, how you speak, how you listen, the choices that you make. So there's maybe been a 18-year story that's been unfold 18 months. Sorry guys, Mercury retrograde. 18-month story on new beginnings and learning, classes, education, travel, writing. Maybe you've been doing some writing projects, and so this solar eclipse brings that to a culmination. Maybe you can start to connect the dots and to see what's been going on since then. Moving on to what's after Taurus, Gemini. This is the part of your chart that talks about money, how you earn it, how you spend it, how you accumulate it, what do you value? So this eclipse has been unfolding over the last 18 months, and maybe you've seen changes in how you earn a living. Maybe you've seen changes in what you value. So this is a time when you have to maybe make some decisions about, how do you want to earn a living? Maybe you've been seeing some changes in that department. Money has maybe been highlighted. It's also a time when you really need to kind of plant down some roots and figure out what's going to create stability in your life. And Cancer is a very heart-aligned sign, so make sure you're earning a living, or you're accumulating things, or you're surrounding yourself with stuff that your heart is really connected to. I just saw Janet's comments about how the last 18 months have felt like 18 years. The last 3 months have felt like I don't know. But thank you all for still following me, even though I apparently don't know how to speak. Mercury retrograde. So moving on to Cancer. If you are a Cancer, happy, almost birthday. But this eclipse, especially if you are born on the 21st, maybe the 20th, or maybe even somebody born at the very end of Gemini, so the 19th, maybe the 18th, you're going into the next 6 months, and even like the next coming personal year for you. It's a powerful new time. To have an eclipse on your birthday means it is a powerful new beginning. The next year will look, very different than the one previous. And hopefully that doesn't kind of make you too nervous. If it is not your birthday, you're like, oh, but I'm still a Cancer. This is a time when over the coming 6 months, you're going to see new beginnings, but you're sort of coming to an end where maybe your life has been at a crossroads. There's been maybe some dynamic energy happening in your life since 2018. Maybe you've seen a lot of changes. This has also been happening in your relationship sign of Capricorn. So this is sort of bringing to a culmination this time of change and transformation. Moving on to what's after Cancer, Leo. So this is the part of your chart that it's happening in maybe this really kind of spiritual, quiet part of your chart. And I think it's worth mentioning that you're sort of stepping out of a time, Leo, where you've needed to search for answers, and search for answers deep within. This has been about almost like letting go of the things you've been really holding on to, and maybe even old habits or even addictions that you've been holding on to. And this eclipse is bringing to a culmination this time of searching for meaning, inner meaning, inner truth, spirituality, mysticism, reflection, retreat, also recuperation. Maybe there's been a sense of quiet time and needing to go within over the last 18 months. But this eclipse is sort of a powerful new beginning that is happening. Sort of the analogy that I make often in client reads is that this is the part of your chart. It's called the 12th house. It's as if you live in a house and there's this room at the end of the hall, and it's the mysterious room that nobody goes into. Well, that's where this eclipse is happening, and this is the room that you go into to connect with Source, with God, Creator, whatever you want to call it. So it's a very spiritual time for you, Leo. So kind of pay attention to what sort of intuition you're getting about this time. Moving on to Virgo. So this is the part of your chart that talks about friends, community, your social networks, the people that you're connected to. Maybe this is a time when you really need to get new friends. Maybe you've been in quarantine like me, and it's like, all right, I need to kind of have some social connections, a very social time for you. This is also a part of your chart that talks about looking ahead into the future and hoping and dreaming and wishing. We need that vision of where we want to go in order to work towards it, create it, and manifest it. So this is a powerful new beginning. It's also a time when it's about these kind of bigger issues, community, humanity, the world. So you might be looking outward, Virgo, and sort of wondering how you get connected to the world at large, or maybe getting connected to social causes or groups or social initiatives, society, even politics is this part of the chart for you. Libra. So Cancer is your career sign. Got that one right. So Cancer is your career sign. This is what I was trying to say earlier when I said it for Aries. This is the part, this is the time in this sort of eclipse story is coming to a close, the one that began in July of 2018, where maybe you've seen a lot of professional changes in the last 18 months. And so this is a culmination of something that's been happening. Now, classic eclipse astrology is that there's been a career change, or there's been a career shift, or you've sort of stepped into new roles and new positions. And so now here you are at the end of the story. Maybe there's another career shift to be made. Maybe this is the punctuation of this process that's been unfolding. I think when Cancer is your career sign, Libra, you need to do what you love. Full stop. Your heart needs to be in it. So make sure your professional life is aligned with something that you love. So this is maybe, also like a change of title, change of status. Maybe your title is changing, maybe your ambitions are changing, maybe your direction is changing. Because eclipses, one thing you can bet on is eclipses mean change. That's just what they do. They sort of change the narrative, they change the story. Scorpio. So this is the part of your chart that talks about what you believe in, what your faith is, your foreign travel, which I don't know how many of us are doing that right now. I'm sadly not. It's about going out into the world, really discovering the world, and to kind of figuring out how this big world works and our place in it. This is bringing to an end a story that's been unfolding over the last 18 months, where you've had to sort of share your wisdom, share your philosophy, sort of educate yourself, but there's a sense of you now, or have been, needing to be the professor. Interesting, I am a Scorpio, here I am professing to you all every Monday. So this is a time where you need to express your convictions, express your faith, express your wisdom. And this is, of course, punctuating a story that's been going on the last 18 months. This is the part of the chart that talks about higher education. So that might be relevant if you're a Scorpio and graduating and working towards that, that degree. Moving on to Sagittarius. Cancer is the part of your chart that talks about the deepest, most vulnerable parts of yourself. And you are coming out of an 18-month process where you've had to dive and descend into the deepest parts of yourself. And maybe this has been a very psychological time. Maybe this is a time of self-discovery and release, and to heal and to reveal yourself. It's a very scorpionic time. It's been about the past. It's been about memories and family, and seeing what sort of hidden motivations are getting in the way. This is what's called an 8th house transit for you, and it's sort of this punctuation on all the work that you've been doing since July of 2018. This part of the chart also talks about money and value and resource, especially debt, sort of the other people's money. So maybe you're having to kind of negotiate and with sort of your own kind of finances, and it's a great time to check in with an estate planner or insurance or getting a life insurance policy. Sorry, this is very Scorpio talk. Nobody wants to hear about a life insurance policy, but this is the time for you. It's just it's about wealth and how do you plan for the future. And it's also a time that's about intimacy and sexuality and really opening up to a partner. Moving on to Capricorn, Cancer is your relationship sign. So this is sort of coming, this punctuation of all this work that's been happening over the last 18, 19 months to bring in new relationship. And maybe classic astrology is that you've seen a new partner come in. Maybe there's even been a marriage. If it's not just romantic relationships for Capricorn, it's all relationships. This is a time when I think Capricorn, and especially with some of the more difficult astrology that was happening as we went into 2020, Capricorn had to realize that it can't do it all by itself. It has to ask for help. It has to bring other people in. It has to partner. It has to connect. So this is maybe that, somebody coming in and you're connecting with people differently, and you know what's going on in your life, of course, Capricorn, but it's sort of the end of this time when relationship has just been very highlighted since July of 2018. Will it be the only time relationship is highlighted? Of course not, but it's just the eclipses naturally have been sort of pointing towards emotional connection, one-on-one connection, partnership, and communication. Not communication, but I'm sure why not, over the last 18 months. Aquarius. So this is the part of your chart that talks about health and wellness. How do you take care of your body? Maybe you've been doing a lot of work over the last 18 months to take care of your body, to nurture your body, to love your body, because your body is the only one that you have in this life and you have to take care of it. Maybe you've made some positive changes in diet, fitness, and nutrition. Maybe you've even sort of felt safe in your body for the first time. That sounds nice. But this is a time that's like a punctuation to the work that you've been doing, and if there's any sort of remaining initiatives that you need to do in terms of your physical health, how you organize your day, your relationship with time and time management and organization, this is certainly an eclipse to focus. I just saw a comment. You listen for both your sun and rising sign, and I get this question all the time, which one is correct? They're both correct. We are multi-dimensional beings that exist on different planes of time. Sorry, I'm getting a bit Aquarian on you. So it is possible to have both an experience that is your sun sign and also a parallel experience that is your rising sign. I'm a Scorpio with Sagittarius rising, so I can see the experience for both those times. I have the ruler, so I'm getting off on a tangent. I have the ruler of my chart, Jupiter, and Leo. I also noticed that Leo time is very relevant in my life, even though I'm not a Leo. So we can have all these different ways of looking at that. It's a great question, Janine. Aquarius, yes. So you are sort of wrapping up this time of focusing on your health and making hopefully really positive changes in your living environment, your kind of your day-to-day life, your routine, but also how you take care of your body. Last but not least, Pisces. This is a part of your chart that talks about, I'm going to tell a little story for a moment, because when we talk about the 5th house or the 5th sign, so this is Cancer is Pisces' 5th sign, we talk about self-expression. We talk about creativity. We talk about persona and identity. And what does that even mean? And I think it's really important for each and every one of us to, the example I give is like the grandma example. So you have a grandmother who makes this amazing food, and everybody loves her food. And one day she diligently creates a recipe book of all her recipes. And one day, unfortunately, she passes, and we still have the recipes, and we make the recipes, and we follow them to the letter, but they're never the same. And I'm sure each and every one of you have had some type of experience like that, when that is, she was putting the essence of herself into the food. We look at the fifth house. We all have a fifth house somewhere in our chart. That is where we connect to the essence of who we are. That essence that transcends everything, and that essence that also inhabits everything. It inhabits the food that we make, and inhabits the things that we create, and inhabits how we share ourselves and express ourselves. So Pisces, this is the time when you have to really connect with that essence. What makes you you? What do you infuse yourself into? What do you create? Creating, it doesn't have to be art. It doesn't even have to be cooking, but it's something that we have to feel so passionate about and alive that, God forbid, one day when we pass, people, that's something tangible, that essence that's no longer there. That is the fifth house. Anyway, that's me teaching astrology. So this is what this eclipse means for you, Pisces, really discovering who you are. So lots of things going on this week. I thank you all for your patience as I sort of like Mercury retrograde my brain. If you are new here, my name is Katie Sweetman. I'm an astrologer and psychic medium. I have a holistic approach to astrology. I want to look not just at the chart, but I want to look at you. And the idea is that I'm helping you connect to your soul, the highest you. What did you come here to do? What are you working on? What are your lessons? What's in your blind spots? So you can check me out at empoweringastrology.com. I'm on Facebook if you don't follow me already, Empowering Astrology. I'm on Instagram, Empowering Astro. I'm on Twitter. So I can book a consultation. I have clients. Some of you are actually clients watching now because I can see you in the comments. So have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves. There's eclipse energy. We have to make sure that we are sort of taking care of ourselves, and because things are moving, things are changing. We're in this sort of pregnant liminal space between different lives. Janet, you asked about this eclipse and how it connects to the next one in July. We will talk about that another time. We can talk about that in the next live I got to run. So thank you all for your time, and until the next time we connect, the next live look, have a wonderful week. Take care. Bye.